Good evening, everyone. I haven't said this in a while, but welcome to Toaster Talk, yet another season as we get into 2025. So, Happy New Year to all our viewers. I know it's almost end of quarter one, but it is start of the F1 season after the long break that we had, and an interesting 2024 season after the last few years of Red Bull dominance. We saw a new constructors champion, McLaren, and we'll get into what how that form is playing out as the pre-testing that happened in Bahrain over the last weekend. But with that, first of all, I would like to, call upon our favorite fanelists who have been with us for through the duration of Toaster Talk. And for any new viewers coming in, I'd request our panelists to sort of introduce yourself and the constructor of choice that you've had so far. Starting off with Naren, who makes this podcast international.
Thank you. Thanks, Vivek, for having me. It's actually a pleasure to be at this podcast, and also it's a pleasure to discuss the favorite sport of mine. Um, so my favorite constructor show to be in the past was Red Bull, of course, not for Verstappen, but of course for Checo Perez. But this time around, it should be a little different. I'm rooting for Ferrari, considering that they are two big players in the team, including Charles Leclerc. So that's about me.
Well, now that is a switchover that we're going to have fun discussing this season. But before we get into that, our other panelist, Vignesh, welcome aboard.
Yeah, welcome all the people. I'm joining in from Mumbai, so that's at least national. I can make it, not like Naren, but yeah, if you ask me, I have been following F1 since 2007 when we had a wonderful battle with Kimi and the Mr. Cool. I used to follow Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, my favorite teams. For the last few years, I have been following more Mercedes mainly because of Lewis Hamilton being involved in with the team. But now with Lewis Hamilton shifting, I would love to support Ferrari, but then I felt since the company where I'm working is still sponsoring Mercedes, I'll go with Mercedes.
Got it. Well, welcome aboard. So we still have Mercedes slash FIA supporter there with Vignesh. And yeah, Naren with the Red Bull changes is possibly a more Ferrari fan this year. Me, out and out, have been a Ferrari fan since I started watching with Michael Schumacher. It's been more than a decade since we have seen some silverware in our hands, but optimism that this year with the changes and a multi-year world champion coming into Ferrari, it's bittersweet for me because if he wins with Ferrari, then yes, that's brilliant. But he'd also then be moving ahead of Michael Schumacher, which I'm not so keen on. I'd rather have Michael Schumacher hold on to it for even longer. But we'll figure out how that season goes in. Now, as we get into 2025, first up, we spoke about the fact that Hamilton, for years, been with Mercedes, won so much under them. It's a big, big change to see him in red. What are the other changes in terms of drivers in the racing circuit uh, that you guys want to be pointing out about?
Okay, so I'll go first. One of the most prominent changes is a lot of drivers have left the grid, including Checo Perez, Bottas, and a few others. So they would be, of course, replaced by a few drivers. Bottas has become the reserve drivers for Mercedes. Checo Perez is, I think, so still the reserve driver for Red Bull, per se. Uh, a few major changes is science moving from Ferrari to Williams, potentially from a front marker to a back marker, but considering the testing days, Williams are proving good for the gamble. You can see Ocon shifting from Alpine to Haas are two prominent changes. Of course, Hamilton shifting from Mercedes to Ferrari, which triggered that entire avalanche of the drivers' market last year.
To add on to actually what Vignesh was saying, I think this season is primarily the biggest season where we had a lot of newbies coming in. For example, in Mercedes, it's not usual that they have somebody very new in the F1 drivers to come. That is Kimi Antonelli. And with Racing Bull, we had Isaac Hadjar. That's also a little new. And with Alpine, we had Jack Doohan. And with Stake, Of course, Kick Sauber, we have Gabriel, so which means there are a total of four new drivers on the grid. And of course, there are a lot of the changes. And my opinion actually is that this will definitely be the most interesting season, considering that we had a lot of changes, a lot of engineers moving around, and also a lot of new drivers. So, and of course, this is the last season before we go on to the biggest change of 2026. This will probably be a game changer for a few, okay, and not so big deal for some.
Makes sense. A lot of new drivers, a lot of drivers switching around, as you highlighted. We also have, with International Women's Day coming up next week, we also have our first female race engineer. You know, uh, Naren, you want to talk a bit more about that, and then I will get into introducing our not so new panelist, Sathya, who's joined us. But before we get there, I wanted to want Naren you to finish off on that point.
Okay, I actually forgot the name of the race engineer, but it's actually good that we have race somebody who can know the name can chip in here. But it's very good that we have an actual race engineer in Haas, and that's not so usual to actually have race engineers. We do have race drivers, but race engineers are not something that we have. So maybe if somebody knows the name, they can chip in.
That's Laura Mueller.
Laura Mueller.
Yes, that's, and I think I heard her speak with Ocon in one of the days of testing over the radio, and also considering that we have an anti-swearing ban this season, it should be more respectable for the women also.
And with that, Satya has disappeared. So while we figure out all our race drivers and our panelists is figuring out whether they want to be in or out with all the drama that's happening, uh, yeah, did want to hear that from a regulation standpoint, what are the changes that we can expect this year? Like one thing that came out and wanted your thoughts was, the fastest uh, point that you used to get for finishing the lap, which added some bit of drama, and in some cases it was broader strategy of sister players kind of coming in and protecting it from the other team so that it played out in the long run. What are your thoughts on them moving it out?
I can go first. In addition, also one more thing that they have brought in is, in addition to this point ban, is if let's say there is qualification, the qualification does not happen, then the grid will start based on the championship points.
Correct. And that's specifically because of
That's
the field.
yeah, yeah. So if you can probably take these two into consideration, it mostly then depends purely on the skill and the driver that the skill and the car that driver has for the entire season instead of focusing on that particular race. So, for example, many people who lost places in Monaco will not be able to gain places because of the very tight speed circuit it is. And what they will do is they will cheekily gain that 1 point advantage to gain that 1 point in a fastest lap, which probably will not make sense this year. And which means that let's say if they lose their place in the qualification, that means the entire race is lost. Which also means that they should plan all the way ahead from the practice all the way to qualifying to make sure that they gain a place. It's a bit of a
New
strategy, so to
look,
say.
Racing Bull, just like Racing Bull has a new name, we have a new look, Satya. Welcome, Satya, back to the new season of Toast the Torque. And quick introduction, your favorite constructor, and then your counterpoint for Naren.
Hey Vivek, hey everyone. I'm so sorry I keep jumping in and out. I had an issue with the laptop. Oh, favorite constructor. Oh God. So it's Ferrari right now, and I'm sort of, you know, I have no idea because it is completely uncharted territory for me. My favorite constructor right now is Ferrari because of Lewis Hamilton, and watching him it still feels surreal watching him don the red. And when the first day of testing was going on, And when Crofty was saying, "Hey, the McLaren drivers are there," I'm like, "Yeah, Lewis Hamilton and Russell," and I'm like, "Oh no, no, Lewis is not a
Mercedes.
a Mercedes driver anymore." So Ferrari is the one. The counterpoint to Naren that I wanted to actually mention right now was with regards to Monaco, because there is a new rule that has been implemented wherein they are forcing Monaco to be a two-stop race.
Correct.
Now, given that scenario, there is a possibility that things might change around. Because otherwise, as Naren was mentioning, if you done with the qualifiers, you are done. There is no way to move around. But because it is going to be a two-stop strategy, there can things might go wrong. You never know. Once it happened with Ricardo, he was in the lead, but because of the pit stop, he lost places. But because of the two strategies implemented, I hope that Monaco is going to be interesting rather than boring. In fact, if Monaco becomes interesting, I would like them to implement the same rule throughout all the races, because a two-stop strategy makes it more interesting compared to a one-stop, because every single car, most of the time, you know what the strategy is going to be. It's going to be either medium hard, or it's going to be soft, medium soft, or it's going to be hard and then softs. If it becomes two stop, then something might become more interesting.
I think they're also leaning on Mother Nature, right? Because last year, a lot of the races became exciting because of changing weather conditions and the safety car playing a big role. So they're leaving some part of that for that. And then, to your point, Monaco has a two-lap strategy. The other thing, since we spoke, like
Yeah.
since I brought up Mother Nature, is another rule that's come in is because of Qatar and how hot it was there. They do have this option that if the track temperatures sort of, not the track temperatures, but the temperatures go up to 30 degrees Celsius and above, drivers will be allowed to put on a coolant vest which will help them stay much more cooler than the pressure that they went through in Qatar last year. So that should hopefully make it a lot more comfortable for them. And since we are in the Middle East, we are not starting the season with Bahrain or the Saudi, primarily because the month of Ramadan has begun over there. So Australia is also actually going to be the season opener in a couple of weeks. And then we'll be heading over to Middle East later in April, where we'll do Bahrain and Saudi together. So that's going to be a change in terms
Yeah.
of how it plays out this year. But Bahrain did still start off with pre-testing. And that's where I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on, basically your predictions for 2025 based on the inputs from what you got from the pre-testing that we saw at Bahrain. And we can skip the power cut bit, which was after me having spent so many years in Bahrain, have never seen a power cut. And to see it years later, it is super interesting to watch all the drivers and the engineers struggling with their own torchlights, just like how we used to figure out those fancy cars in front of them. Uh, Satya, since you joined in late, as an engineer, I would be like last in, first out. So you get a chance to start off with your thoughts on 2025 predictions.
So it is going to be a very interesting season. Most of it Naren has already covered on why, because we have a lot of rookies and all that coming in. But my main prediction, and I hope it comes true, is the eighth World Championship for Lewis Hamilton. That is what I'm aiming for, because during the entire duration of testing, there was not one time when he looked sad or worried while being in the car, as compared to the last 2 to 3 years in Mercedes, wherein every time he comes out, he's either in a stressed, tensed, or a distressed manner. That was a great change to see. The A couple of other predictions that I have is, or I would like things to happen. One is Williams might do very well,
Mhm.
given the way that Sainz is putting the car out, and this is the first time where we actually will see how good Albon is. Given the teammates that Albon had previously, this is where Albon would actually be tested in comparison to Sainz. Then coming to McLaren's, they seem to have a strong car, but given that they were not actually running for they didn't seem to be doing race testing. Rather, it seemed to be more like a duration testing because they weren't high up in the charts previously, but they seem to be doing long durations. So I feel they might actually be a good contender for the Constructor Championship. With regards to Red Bull, I am pretty sure they will not be anywhere near Constructor Championship because Max would again be, you know, breaking his back, carrying the entire team since Liam Lawson, although they say or expect him to be fast, I do not think so because that car is specifically built for Max Verstappen.
Or
Liam
he's able to
Lawson,
pull out the max out of it.
or he is able to pull out the max effort of it. So I'm not sure Liam Lawson can perform as much as people are expecting. Russell would definitely outperform Kimi Antonelli because given Kimi Antonelli's previous style of performance, it takes him a couple of races to get into shape. So unlike when Lewis joined in as a rookie and his first race, I think he became third. We would not see anything like that. I am hoping that uh, Hulkenberg gets one podium finally, at least one podium for that poor man. And Haas might also be performing pretty well.
Yeah, and I think the shakeup with not just the front, the middle, the back markers, and with for example, like you said, Sainz coming in Williams, it could either make it really exciting at the back, or he could pull Williams to the front, at least to the middle, and fighting to the edges of the front. So, but would love to hear, Naren, your thoughts on your predictions for 2025.
I would like to echo what Sathya has said because actually Sathya has actually covered a wide range of topics. My opinion also, this season, if there's issues with the flex saving coming from McLaren, McLaren should be a strong contender for the Constructors' Championship, considering that they were doing pretty well. Very close, in my opinion. It is actually a gamble between Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren for the top spot because considering how, like Satya was saying, Hamilton was at ease, and my biggest fear, especially the Monaco Grand Prix, if there are two stops, as an example, would be that the Ferrari should not probably take their strategies into their head and do something wrong. That should be my biggest worry. But that should be then the top. The middle order seems to be very packed with Williams, Alpine, has in very strong contenders. Also, one thing to note is Stake did not perform really well during the testing, considering that they will be changed to Audi in 2026. So my top prediction for the top will still be between Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull still. I'm more inclined towards Ferrari to, let's say, end the championship drought from 2007.
Perfect. Clearly, last year or even last to last year, when we used to have this conversation in preseason, it was just like taken for granted Red Bull. Surprisingly, that hasn't come up so far with the two finalists that we've spoken to. Getting to Vignesh, what are your predictions?
Okay, a few things which I wanted to clarify is this is not the first time Australia is hosting a season opener. Before 2019, it was a season opener. And one thing which had to be noticed is since 2010, any person who has won the season opener in Australia has never gone on to win the championship for that year. So I really want Norris to win the championship opener. Just because I can see Lewis Hamilton win his eighth championship title. Might be Norris might break that curse, who knows, but it's happening first. Second thing is that okay, a lot of new drivers, including those veterans, right? They are going to go back to uncharted domains like China, like Japan, after a long time. So China is going to be especially tricky considering that okay, it's returning to the calendar after 4 years of high tests. So that's going to be a circuit which is going to be tricky. Considering Monaco having a two-stop strategy, I really hope that Mercedes, which has been playing well in the testing, does not make another longest pit stop of the year in Monaco, thanks to Bottas last year. So should not happen. So considering all these and see, testing can be a right result or cannot be because a lot of teams sandbag. Some teams also do a pebble back. They put a lot of pebbles, but overall, I feel that okay, McLarens are the team to challenge. Um, Mercedes, Ferrari are close call, second, third. Depends on who nails the strategy at what point. The third thing is after these three teams comes Red Bull, but for me, still I'll keep Red Bull at fifth because I feel Williams have the potential to go to fourth. So that's my theory of Red Bull coming down to five, and then the rest of the midfields can juggle their way across. So that's the order.
Well, a lot of bold
Would
predictions
love to
there.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to finish off another point.
I said would love to see Hamilton getting his eighth world championship and finally confirming his eighth world. Unlike when there was a point for the fastest lap, someone took the point away and became the first world time champion. But yeah, that's gonna be fun.
So again, clearly I'm the only odd one out who wants Ferrari to win the Constructors Championship, but maybe the other driver can take the World Championship as a driver. Uh, just because I want Michael Schumacher to stay up there. But that said, I think this conversation from last year is so very different in terms of the predictions, which just means that there is so much more to happen this year compared to what we thought would happen last year. But then McLaren came in out of the blue towards the second half of the season and were able to get the constructors off the hands of Red Bull. And while Max Verstappen had such an august performance in the first half of the season, that even though he struggled in the second half, and Lando tried to get in, he still had a comfort margin. So before we close out, the one other bold prediction I want from all of you is which month do you think will the Drivers' Championship be sealed? Which month or which race?
That's actually something that will probably be a little difficult. But I think the last year's championship was sealed at the end of September or October, if I am right. That's primarily because of the fact that Red Bull was completely dominant throughout the entire season. This season, if you see, there are not just one championship contenders, but three championship contenders. So, which means that it's very difficult to actually predict now when the championship contender will be crowned.
I'm saying Abu Dhabi.
We should, okay. That should be the last, of course. But then we have to also see how the first half of the season pans out. So should be a long wait.
Yeah, no, I'll allow you to change
So
your favorites in mid-season, so that's fine.
Then I'll have to stay with your decision of Abu Dhabi still.
yeah, I am assuming it will be in the last 2 to 3 races. That is where even I feel the same. Uh, Given that, again, in fact, I would say we don't just have three. We have for championship contenders, we have Leclerc. We can't discount Leclerc because he has been in that team and car for a while. So we have Leclerc, Hamilton, we have Norris and Piastri. Piastri is this year Piastri will come back even stronger. We also have uh, Max Verstappen. So I feel there are five people who might be contending for the championship. So it is going to be a tough one. I feel the last 2 to 3 races is where it will get finally decided on who the champion is. Again, if the first couple of races a particular team and driver are strong, then maybe we can check later. But for the moment, 2 to 3 races.
Yeah. Vignesh.
Yeah. So I would say that I would love the championship to get over by the 7th of November, or 9th of November to be precise. That's Brazil. If Hamilton is winning, at least give a credit to Ayrton Senna and homage to Ayrton Senna by winning in Brazil the championship title. That's the thing which I want. But yeah, as said by Satya, I just wanted to add that okay, you also have Russell and Kimi who can play a spoil sport to a lot of people, considering the cars. Um, Kimi might not, but at least Russell being well versed with the
Russell,
car.
yeah.
So it becomes 6 or 7. Yeah, of course, the first half of the season would surely tell. Really hope Ferrari win the drivers' champions, but yeah, the strategists matter.
Well, they're getting a strategist free with Hamilton. He'll have to double up and do that also from the car. One
That's
team that
what
we
I'm
missed
worried
out
about.
talking about, and we'll probably talk in our next one, is the Aston Martin with Alonso and Stroll. One of the few teams that the drivers lineup hasn't changed, just like McLaren. Everywhere else, we're seeing a lot of new drivers, new partnerships at play. So those would be exciting, but also be good to see teams that are stuck to their winning, I won't say winning formula, but a comfortable, consistent formula. How do they play out this season? So for all our viewers, we are back with a bang. 2025 looks to be a lot more exciting just with some of the tweaks with the rule changes, this being the last year before we have big bang rule changes coming in 2026. A lot of drivers being swapped over. Obviously, we started off and we should end with the same thing, watching a multi-year world champion going for an all-time record in a color that we never thought he would be wearing. Uh, is getting a lot of people worked up and confused because you're so used to seeing someone competing with another team and then having them wear those colors will just make it a lot more confusing. The first race, I think everyone's just going to try to figure out like who's racing, who's where, and why are they in those colors. But as we get into Australia with the season opener, let's see who wins that, and hence they do not win the championship, as Vignesh highlighted, with the jinx of Australia. But stay tuned in, log into our show. We're there on Spotify, YouTube, as you can see us. Drop in the comments, and as always, with every influencer that comes in, is like, share, subscribe, and let us know what you think about the racing season. What are your predictions? Drop them in the comments. And do you agree with our panelists or disagree, and why? With that, wishing everyone a lovely evening ahead, and we will see a great racing season. Thank you for our panelists yet again. Looking forward to having these conversations and holding you to your predictions as we get throughout the season.
Engines roar, the lights they fade. Hamilton's rides a scarlet shade. McLaren's fortress made of steel. Drama on track you cannot conceal. Racing hearts and burning tires. Paddock talk, it's full of fires. Thundering past the checkered lines. Stories told in sharp decline.